I don't know, man. I was not happy with what every direction they decided to take in this race, man. You know what? We came into this weekend with one hope that Spa, of all places, would remind us why we fell in love with Formula One.
Yeah,
Because we saw one of the best races of the season in Silverstone, right? It
yeah.
was amazing. We got the wet weather chaos, the raw unpredictability, the danger, the skill, rookies making those mistakes. It was amazing where every driver was trying to find that perfect spot. And we got the historic Nico Hulkenberg podium. That
Exactly.
was amazing to watch, man. As a neutral, as a Formula One fan, where obviously if it was just a dry race, would Nico Hulkenberg get that podium? Probably not. And it was just something that, it was like destiny where weather made that possible. And sometimes we have to go with that. But what did we get in Spa? We got a race so stabilized, it barely felt like F1 at all, man. Where every car was just running behind each other and they can't do much. Every time when we talk about this, I just have to ask FIA, what are we doing, man? You have literally taken the most iconic, treacherous, character defining circuit on the calendar and turned it into a circus. Like, we knew rain is predicted, everything is there, and obviously it's not easy to drive here because there's that low visibility, but that's not the way, man. And when it was the race start time, it was not that heavy rain, according to me. Atmosphere was electric, everyone was excited. We all were thinking that this is it, Spa is about to do what Spa always does, man. Chaos, everything, first lap chaos. Every driver will be trying to find that perfect spot because it's not easy, man. It's a 7 kilometer track. And then race starts behind safety car, and mind you, it was not raining as hard as I. So yeah, visibility was poor. Some drivers were complaining, but that's usually the case when it rains, right? You don't get that much visibility. So you just have to go with that. And what happened next? Red flag. Thank you, FIA, for promoting our channel. I really appreciate that, but that was something that we probably could have avoided, because I think that decision they took was not because of the current conditions. They saw that heavy rain was coming, probably in 10-15 minutes, and it will make it super tough for every driver. Are we just giving up on wet weather racing now? Like, what's the point of going through weather radar? What's the point of going through wet weather setup, putting high downforce, especially for the drivers who started from pit lane? They saw that opportunity that probably it will rain as hard and probably we can extract some performance in like maybe 20 or 25 laps if it is about to dry up. There was no race, and after that phase, when rain stopped, they decided to send all the trucks to clear the water, which usually they do, but it was just bone dry at that moment, and sun came out, and I don't know, man. 4 laps behind safety car when every driver was saying that probably we should go on, start racing. And yes, there were some drivers who were saying that some places are still wet, which will be, man. It was raining for like 1 hour 30 minutes, and the next thing, rolling start. I mean, what was the point, man? Like, I have so many things to say, but I'm completely out of words right now because we could have gone with some wet weather racing. I feel at least at the start, maybe check how the conditions are. 3-4 laps we can go on race, and if it's a heavy downpour, then probably red flag at that moment. Wait for that and just go back on track and let the cars clear the water, man. Maybe behind the safety car, and then let them race. There should be some wet weather racing, man. And my next question is, why do we have wet weather tires, man? They are the most useless thing in Formula One. And I can't even remember when was the last time it was used by everyone at this point. And I don't know, man. It was just like FIA killed all the pit lane starters because they had no chance. Even once, I think when after 10 laps, they were just sitting at the back, and they couldn't do much. They couldn't overtake because it was a high downforce setup they went for, and it was just 20 drivers finishing the race on one stop strategy. Some went on 2-stop strategy, but barely any moves, and this race was destined to be one of the most chaotic one. And this is not what I love about Formula One, man. And many new F1 fans are coming to this sport. Is this the message you want to send, that we won't race? Maybe this is a new sport, cricket, where we have to wait for wet weather to clear and then probably we will play. Is that the way we want to move forward? Probably not. Maybe I should watch IndyCar or even football for that matter.
It's like collectively the entire FIA deletes their balls. Because like you said, what is the point of having f***ing wet tires if you're not going to race in wet conditions?
Exactly.
If you're just going to hope for a slightly damp track to be your racing condition, then remove the wet tires. Don't have that. For 4 years, I've been seeing the wet tires on the infographic at the beginning when Crofty introduces the track, and I can't remember the last time I've seen that wet tire put on an actual car, displacing 100 and some change liters of water per second. What is the point of having that insane statistic? Yeah. And to add to this, fine, you have zero balls as FIA to allow the drivers to race in wet conditions. Why the f*** is Spa in the F1 calendar during the monsoon season then? Displace it by 2 months, put it in April. It's going to be a little bit colder, fine, but at least you're going to be assured that chances of rain are much lesser.
Yeah.
If you absolutely insist on being a pussy, then be a pussy properly. Move the track 2 months ahead. Move the race 2 months ahead. So yeah, all in all, they managed to somehow ruin my favorite race as well. So I share your frustration in this. And that's why even though there was a 1-2, I'm gonna be completely honest with you, I was watching the race on my phone while playing video games. After the first 10 laps, I pretty much figured out that this is the tone the race is gonna take. And I just could not be bothered to pay attention because I'm speechless.
Yeah, man. Look, I get it. Safety matters. Absolutely, it matters. We have seen some horrible crashes here, and obviously, no one's asking for recklessness. But there are ways to handle that. Let the drivers do what they do, which is race and find that best spot. And if it is too hard, then definitely take that call after that instead of just taking that back step and just wait for the wet weather to clear. Maybe the reason was that medical helicopter can't operate in those conditions, and maybe only in that case it makes sense. But even before that, my point is that we could have gone racing for at least some laps, and once the weather was clearing up, we should have sent those cars right away. Like there's some rain, probably they can find that spot so that at least it's a level playing field, and that rolling start also makes no sense. Yes, there was some dry patches for some and wet patches for some, but that's usually the case when it rains.
And you know what, 2021 was a good example of this when it was absolutely pissing down on the track, and they just cut the race because it was pretty much going to rain for the entire 3 hours that was allotted to them for the track duration for the race. So when stuff like that happens, when your radar is telling you that it's going to be pouring for many hours pretty much non-stop, I get it, man. And the funny thing is, even in those conditions, they went racing for a little bit. So I'm sure FIA is learning from those mistakes. Even Antoine Hubert's very tragic crash, I am not trying to take away from any of that. Fair and square, don't kill the drivers, but let them try to race when it's not pouring down. After all of this, fine, it's unsafe, you can't go racing, the medical helicopter does not have suitable conditions to help someone if there is a crash. All these points taken into account. How is it that you have speed limits for every safety car, virtual or otherwise? Why can't you have speed limits for when it's raining? Let them put their wet tires, limit the top speed to, let's say right now it's 320 kph, limit that to 250 kph. So that you are forced to not go that fast. It's not rocket science. When it's raining, you go racing, but you neuter your top speed. As simple as that. And if your argument is that usually the crashes happen in the corners when the drivers can't get the rotation right and the car gets out of control, impose a speed limit on cornering speeds. If the fastest corner is going at 120 miles per hour, limit that to 90 miles per hour. Force the drivers to go a certain top speed regardless of whether it's a straight or a corner. You can prevent crashing in the corners, you can prevent aquaplaning. All those things can be done simply by imposing a top speed limit. I don't know, if two morons on the internet can figure this out in give or take 10 minutes and change, why can't FIA figure this out? How hard is it to impose these things?
Yeah, man. And I think every driver, maybe Max Verstappen also said that he wanted to race. Even Lewis Hamilton said that he wanted to race. Even if these rules are not in place at the moment, they still wanted to race. Even with those conditions, even with the present tools they had. So I'm not sure, man. They could have taken this in a much better way. They could have gone with some wet weather racing if it was like probably the weather will stop pouring down. Maybe like send them out for like 10 minutes. Let them enjoy that maybe wet weather racing as well. Let those cars clear the water which is already there. Instead of sending a tractor to clear that water out so that it's just bone dry. And sun came out just after that. It was those conditions where nothing they could have done. And with the present configuration of the cars, we know how tough it is to overtake. We saw how boring that sprint race was. It was to say the least, man. No overtakes, no major overtakes, if I have to say. And that was the case with the main race also, because there was wet weather racing and drivers were trying to find that sweet spot initially. And that's the reason maybe why Lando Norris lost the win, why George Russell was able to make some overtakes, why even Leclerc and Verstappen was fighting at those moments. But after that, there was nothing to show for, man. And it was just level playing field for every single driver, where even if Lando Norris, we will talk about other drivers and what all happened in the race, but if any driver was able to catch that driver, I don't think they would have overtaken that driver just because of the configuration they had and just because the conditions were at that moment.
But then that brings me back to a different point, which is when you're imposing a certain standard in the weather for racing, teams are setting their cars up to prepare for the worst, which is absolute pissing down rain.
Yeah.
The thing is, when you only allow them to race in the full dry conditions or as dry as possible conditions, you are very much biasing and favoring the teams that went for a low drag setup on a gamble. And that means you're straight away cutting out 30 to 40% of the grid straight away from even having a chance at racing. At least when you let them have a wet weather race, these teams that went for high drag setup, they will initially eke out an advantage, and then when the track dries slowly, the ones who went for a low drag setup are forced to perform overtakes and make those changes in the field, in the finishing order. That gives everyone a fair chance. It gives the drivers with the high drag setup a good chance to fight and maybe hold the lead if they can build a big enough one. That gives the ones with low drag setups a chance to go full pedal to the metal when it dries out. And lastly, it gives the fans something to watch. For years now, at least for the past 3 years now, they've been neutering the sport specifically in the wet conditions. Not any amount of making Drive to Survive or the F1 movie is going to bring in new viewership if you don't hold the new viewers.
Yeah, man. Imagine if they would have stopped racing in Brazil, where we saw Max Verstappen making those overtakes. Imagine Senna not able to race in those conditions. I don't know, man.
So I really don't get it. If they have such a beef with rain at Spa specifically, again, just change the calendar, man. Yeah. Push it back 2 months. Keep it in April. Keep it in May, at the middle of the summer.
I don't know, man. I think we can go on for hours and hours, but probably anything will change. I don't know.